Hello and welcome to Hot Funk, the show with spicy questions and even spicier guests. This time we're not doing spicy, we are doing sour, and our guest is the philosophy professor himself, Dr. Simmons, and his son Atticus. To start things off, Dr. Simmons, you've already been really active in the content creation during the pandemic, putting out weekly videos and philosophical musings. How else have you been spending your quarantine time, and what are your plans for this strange summer?
It's a good question. I actually started doing all of the YouTube creation entirely because I expected not to be very productive during this quarantine time. I'm at home with my 10-year-old and my wife and a ridiculous little cockapoo and 2 parakeets. And so the idea that I was likely to get a lot of writing done seemed pretty far-fetched. And I approach philosophy as a kind of creative activity. And so I don't feel comfortable with myself unless I'm producing and creating new material. And so I thought, well, I'm probably not going to get just a big string of essays done. I'm probably not going to finish the next book that I was hoping to get done. So let's do daily videos. Let's kind of expand the audience, reach out a little bit. And I've been absolutely blown away by the response. Thousands of views, hundreds of subscribers. It's really been an amazing opportunity, an amazing time. As far as the rest of the summer, we're going to have to get real creative because my son has about 9 camps that are now not happening. And once school gets out for him, it's not just now trying to fill, like 2:30 till bedtime. It's going to be, early in the morning all the way to night, trying to figure out how do we fill that time. But we'll make it work. And it's like I tell my students and remind myself that the quarantine, the pandemic, as bad as it is, as miserable and exhausting as it is, it doesn't change anything essential. All it does is reminds us of what was always essential and what always mattered. And so, I get to be with my family and we get to spend time together and be invested in finding ways to make that time, constructive and cool. So we'll do the best we can and eager though for, the public health risk to drop enough so that we can get back out and I can get to the trout streams and, he can get to the skateboard parks and we can move forward.
All right. Thank you for that. We'll go ahead and pop candy right now and get the sour going.
I'm gonna eat one too, just for fun.
Do it, because this next question is actually for you, Atticus.
Okay.
As your dad is always thinking and talking about big questions with students at Furman, does he get deeply philosophical about stuff around the house? And does it get annoying?
Oh gosh, the sour. Yes, he does do some philosophy around the house, to saying, like, oh gosh, or saying, it's sour, like, to go excellent, and yeah, sometimes it does get annoying. Man, this sour in my drink. Sour than the other ones.
He was. You should understand. He was bragging about, Dad, you're never going to make it. I can handle this. I'm not going to be any problem. Now who's rocking?
I'm just saying, it's sour than these other ones.
All right. Do you have any examples of any other times you've been annoyed with your dad?
When I want to do something and he says no, like whenever I go outside and I want to do something, or if I'm inside, whenever it's not the best choice or something, he says no. And also now we're at the wash our hands after just going on to get the mail, or he's scrubbing all of our food when he comes in with the groceries and stuff.
A wise father you have, son.
All right. Well, thank you, Atticus. We'll go ahead and pop another one. Back to Dr. Simmons. Of all the videos and lessons you've presented since the beginning of the pandemic, what is the one lesson you really feel like everyone should come out of this having learned?
Good question. Well, I actually think it's probably not anything that my students are unfamiliar with hearing, because it's a lesson that is sort of the core lesson of all of my philosophy classes, which is that rather than seeking success, as the goal of life. We should seek faithfulness, where faithfulness, I don't mean in a specifically religious sense. I just mean that whatever we think matters, whatever we think is worth our time and our energy, that's where we should, give ourselves, and we should strive for that, for our lives. So instead of saying, oh, my goal is to graduate and get a job and make some money and have a 401k or whatever, those are all good things, right? And I want those for all of my students. But the problem is, let's say your whole goal has been to, become a lawyer and make partner, but you do that and you're 43, now what? And so rather than educating students into a kind of now what middle age, I'd rather them now recognize, look, the human condition is real. Suffering is going to happen. Difficult times are going to occur. But even in the midst of all this, it's not the case that we are defined by our circumstances. Our circumstances are the space in which the human condition plays out. So let's be good. Let's be faithful to what matters, and then keep rocking.
All right. Another one.
Look,
It just keeps getting worse.
it is true.
All right. So we know you're ahead of some Furman professors in terms of tech savviness, as shown by the ability to do this, the ability to publish your musings online. But what struggles have you had during the pandemic, and has Atticus helped you at all to kind of figure it out?
Well, I mean, the struggles that I think are kind of global right now relative to technology are, you've got lots of faculty who are not exactly used to teaching online. And, there's a lot of challenges with teaching online. Furman is a relational campus. We care about face-to-face interaction. We take seriously not just knowing, what you're interested in academically, but who you are and what matters to you, what your values are. Most of my coolest conversations with students, happen walking around the lake or, grabbing a cup of tea over in the library cafe or whatever. So for me, the challenges have not so much been tech challenges as they've been relational challenges. Like how is it we can continue to be personally invested, to be relationally engaged, to be inviting each other to kind of, live with each other? How do we do that while being separated by, by distance, by a Zoom meeting? And yet, look, in a lot of ways, it's also been freaking cool because I've reconnected with former students that I haven't seen in, 8, 9, 10 years. In fact, the other night I hosted a Zoom chat with about 6 students that I was really close with at my previous university before even coming to Furman. So I haven't had these as students for like 12 years, and yet we all, hooked up on Zoom, and we wouldn't have done that if it weren't for the pandemic kind of shutting down our world and making us say, hey, what relationships matter? How do we make this a priority? Old college friends of mine and grad school friends, we've been meeting every 2 weeks on Zoom and checking in on each other and hearing about each other's families. And one of my good friends just adopted their first kid. And, 3 of my good friends on that call are all in the biomedical engineering business. And so they're talking about like the product that their company's working on, treating COVID patients. So in many ways, it's been a change and it's a challenge, but it also actually invites a different kind of relational engagement that in some ways, I don't think it's better, but I think it provides new opportunities. Atticus has definitely helped. And I'll give you one example. It wasn't a tech challenge, but it was, again, relative to the relational stuff. So at LDOC, right, everybody jumps in the fountains. The seniors jump in the fountains. And a couple years ago, I won the Charles Harrell Award and so became part of the senior class. So I went and, fountain hopped with all the seniors. And it was an amazing day, an amazing opportunity. And I hated that my graduating seniors weren't getting to experience that. So for LDOC, during class, at the end of class, what I did is told them all to, raise their orange juice or their carbonated water or whatever else they had nearby. And we went outside, and Atticus threw buckets of water on me. And, I went fountain hopping basically virtually I invited my students, if they wanted to do the same thing, squirt each other with squirt guns, virtually or whatever. And then I took that video, actually edited it down, put little messages to the seniors, and then was able to upload those to the different Moodle sites for the students. So even though they didn't get to experience LDOC, they now had this kind of virtual takeaway where on their last day of classes as a senior, they got to watch one of their professors get dunked with freezing cold water by his son in order to create that same experience. So in that sense, again, like, it's not as good. I mean, the fountains are better, but in some ways, the investment, making sure that they understand, hey, this isn't a thing we would normally do, but let's do it anyway because I care about you. Something about that seemed, also significant. So.
All right, well, that actually leads us into our next question. So we'll go ahead and pop another toxic waste, nuclear, whatever. When this COVID-19 situation is said and done, what do you think won't go back to normal, and what do you wish wouldn't go back to normal?
So by far the hardest part about the shower is it creates a lot of saliva. Yeah. To slobber. So I'll put it this way. So a video I did a couple weeks ago simply was called God Hates Normal. And I actually did a riff on Slayer, a band I like a lot, has a song called God Hates Us All. And I said, look, the idea that God hates us all is a interesting sort of idea. It's probably false, but the problem of evil is very real right now. So it certainly feels like, man, where is God in this pandemic? It's a hard question. But one of the things I think that we can actually learn from and think through and wrestle with in these sorts of weird times is the idea that let's think about what normal was. Well, normal was my son and I getting to go to the skate park. It was us getting to go fishing. It was March Madness and chicken wings, something that I really feel deprived of. It was being able to go to graduation ceremonies. It was seeing my parents, this is normal. But what's also normal, right? So I want to go back to that. But what is also normal is 85 million Americans are either uninsured or underinsured. Normal is a situation that continues to occur daily at almost every social level. Normal is where somehow, though we are outraged, we're also not surprised by what I think is probably rightly considered a lynching in Georgia, in the past few weeks. These are also, unfortunately, part of what normal looks like. Normal is where bullies and the powerful and the wealthy get to somehow dictate what matters and the rest of us have to say yes. So as far as I'm concerned, I hope none of that goes back to normal, right? I hope that what this miserable, horrible reality of evil in the world might lead to is an actual invitation to say, let's change what normal looks like. Let's find a way where going to the skate park and being able to go fishing and watch basketball happen and are possible for everyone, regardless if you're an immigrant or if you are, somebody who has been here all their lives, regardless if you're somebody who is working at the local fast food restaurant or you're working at the doctor's office. Like, let's figure out a way for hospitality, charity, virtue, and justice to be what normal is. And so as far as I'm concerned, I want to go back to normal, but only if normal is a recognition that normal often is something that we need to think differently about. And for what it's worth, that's why I hate when universities talk about giving real world experience to their students, because I don't want them to get experience to go be good at that broken normal system. I want to have students that are saying, no, screw the real world. Let's go make a different world real. So as far as I'm concerned, this is the opportunity for my students, for you all, to take up and say, let's come out of this different. Because as soon as this is over, whenever that happens, in freaking South Carolina, apparently we're open for business like right now for, ridiculous reasons. However, let's say that a year and a half from now, we've got a vaccine and we're all done and everything is behind us. It will be, a few weeks, and we will all somehow be looking back saying, oh my goodness, I wish I had as much time as I had the last year and a half. So don't miss the time that right now you wish you didn't have. Produce, create, be invested, find what matters, and then come out of this saying, I'm no longer okay with a world that looked like the world that let this happen, right? And that seems like a pretty good task for all of us.
Our next question is for Atticus, so we'll go ahead and throw one back.
Oh,
Atticus, how good of a teacher has your dad been now that he's taking on a more significant homeschooling role?
Actually, it's been my mom who teaches me homeschool. My dad, he doesn't do very much for homeschool. He helps me with my, what's it called? Challenge.
Explain what that is.
Like, it's, a higher class level. So, since I'm in challenge, and my mom doesn't get it as much, so my dad helps me with that.
My wife is off camera with a very snarky look on her face, by the way. This isn't true. Basically, Challenge does a lot of advanced math, and so Atticus and I do that together. And my wife, his mom Vanessa, actually used to be a second grade teacher, and so she's been an absolute rock star and champ, and is crushing it.
Yeah.
So,
Well, thank you for that. And then final question and final candy.
oh,
This is the final one.
oh.
This year is going to be a strange one for many Furman students and professors alike. With low budgets, fewer incoming students, and 2 discontinued sports programs, as you were representing by your hat and your jacket. To finish off our interview, what are your suggestions for people's outlooks going into the school year?
Don't eat toxic waste when you walk into your first office hour. I'll tell you that. Good gracious. I think this is going to be a hard year, no matter. Whether we're back in person, which it looks like Furman is trying to make possible. If we're in person, it's not going to look like it used to. There's still lots of things that we're going to have to do different. For me personally, I can't see myself being in classes without having a mask on, expecting masks of my students, trying to find ways to be outside for almost every single class that is, weather permitting. And finding ways to have smaller numbers in the rooms, different types of interaction relative to the dining hall. Like we've got 3 doorknobs that go into the dining hall. I mean that's a disaster for social distancing, right? So no matter if we're in person or not, it's definitely going to be different. And I think that the advice I'd give to students is not to act like that they are entitled to a particular kind of experience, but instead be invested in making the most of the experience that is possible. And I think that's hard. That's hard work. I mean, it's especially hard, for my 10-year-old who's missing his friends. It's even harder in some cases to my 20-year-olds who feel like this was to be the greatest time of my life, and I've only got 4 years in college, and I just lost half of one, and now I'm going to lose more of it. I get it. And nobody is having fun with this. But there's a passage in the Bible that Soren Kierkegaard, who I do a lot of work on, talks about. And it's the passage that says, we are to gain our souls in patience. And what that means is simply stop thinking that you already are the self that you're becoming. No, you are who you're becoming because of the habits and practices that you are doing now. So if you're acting, frustrated and entitled and angry about all of this, you're probably going to then also become a person who doesn't navigate ambiguity and deal with hardship and suffering in ways that are going to inevitably come. You're probably not going to handle it well, right? So let's mourn, let's be empathetic, let's lament what we've lost. But let's also find ways to say, hey, this too will pass, but the relationships, the investment in each other, safety of each other. I mean, if you ask me, well, how many faculty would have to get, deathly ill, or how many family members of a student or an extended family member of one of the staff workers or something, how many of them could we lose to justify letting, college students feel like they had gotten their money's worth? For me, that's already a dangerous type of question. The better question is to say, how is it that we love our neighbor even in the midst of crisis? How do we care about each other? How do we model for each other what it looks like to live through frustration and to invite each other to empathy? And so, as far as I'm concerned, I guess my recommendation, my advice to students is simply that, recognize that patience is a virtue. Care enough about each other not to think that just because you're frustrated means you don't have to pay attention to recommendations and safety guidelines. This is going to be a weird year, but we're going to get through this. We're in this together. And ultimately, college was always about trying to help you become the sort of person who matters, not simply about getting a job that then the powerful in society think matters. And so from where I stand, this sucks. I wish it weren't happening. But since it is, now's the opportunity for us really to dig deep and become the sort of people that we always hoped we would be.
All right. Well, thank you for that and for all of your thoughts throughout this interview. You have successfully made it through the challenges, but this is the part of the show where you get to either call out someone you think would be interesting to interview, or someone who can't handle either sour or spicy food too well, as well as let us know what's happening in your life right now.
So I've got who you need to interview, and my son knows who this is.
I do?
Yes. Who is our neighbor who we would love to see on this? That would be absolutely hilarious, but he can't bring Monster. Randall Childry in the classics department. So, and in fact, here's what I'd recommend. See if you can do a group interview with the classics department. Christopher Blackwell, Randall Childry, Eunice Kim, and Chiara Palladino. That four would be an absolute riot. So that's my recommendation.
Spicy or sour?
I would say go spicy with them, which will be hilarious if they'll do it. And to the viewers, I wouldn't do spicy because I was too worried that if I ended up getting an ulcer and had to go to the doctor, I couldn't get to one right now. so my fear overwhelmed me.
Well, what about this says?
But I would say the classics department for sure would be who I'd recommend. And what are we doing? We are spending most of our evenings trying to find something worth watching on Netflix or Amazon Prime. And usually after about an hour of being frustrated not finding what we want to watch, just giving up and watching YouTube.
No, Psych.
Or Psych is an old USA show we watch a lot of. But yeah, we're doing the best we can.
I have a YouTube channel I started, and it's helping kids around America, how to get through this.
Now tell them what it's called.
Diary of a Cooped-Up Kid.
The Diary of a Cooped-Up Kid. So I highly recommend that to everybody. Dude's crushing me on viewers, by the way. Absolutely has several of likes that have gone viral, and teaching kids how to one day he got up and he said, "Hey Dad, I'm so frustrated. It's spring break. We should be going kayaking." And so we decided, well, heck, let's freaking go kayaking. So we took his kayak out in the backyard, and he got in his kayak and paddled, and I got to use the hose and spray water and throw buckets on him. And then we got our fishing poles out and fished into a little bucket of water that we had. We didn't catch anything, but
it was a fake lure.
Fake lure.
Didn't have a hook on it.
But we've done all kinds of things. He actually today just did his 53rd video, 53 straight days for Atticus on Diary of a Cooped-Up Kid. So yeah, we're making it through. It sucks. We're ready to be done, but it will eventually be over. And as long as everybody I care about and everyone that everyone cares about is able to get through this alive and without serious health damage, it seems to me that's worth the sacrifice that we're all having to pay right now.
All right. Well, thank you for your time. And so we'll see the whole classics department hopefully soon. And for the viewers, be sure to follow Atticus's YouTube channel.